Welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Emotions podcast. Today, I was really just speaking from the heart and off the top of my head, but I feel like the message came through super clear. And I'm talking about the second step in my framework for emotional resilience, which is honoring our emotions. How do we do that? What does that look like? What does that mean? I get into all of that in this episode. I also give some tips for how you can do that, some questions to ask yourself as you move through the process. So I hope you gain something from this episode, and let's get into it. Hi guys. So today I'm just kind of spitballing this episode. I don't really know what's going to come out, but I want to talk about the second step of emotional resilience, which is honoring, right? And to honor means to respect. So we've talked about, how do I notice what I'm feeling? How do I name it? How do I label it? But a very, very important part to emotional resilience is respecting and honoring all of our emotions. And we know that we've been conditioned to see our emotions in negative ways, to have negative associations with them. But the truth is that until we step into the reality of the fact that we will always have emotions in life, and that as long as we're resisting them, we will be dragging ourselves through life and dragging ourselves through discomfort. And often, running from that discomfort will lead us to all kind of harmful situations. So we really need to ask ourselves, do I want to live that way? Do I want to live this way where I'm constantly running and I'm constantly, in pain and having to mask that pain? Or do I want to grow? Do I want to step into alignment with who I am? Do I want to be my best self, as they say, right? And the way that we achieve that is through emotional resilience, is through the ability to see our emotions, respect them for the tools and the resources, the internal resources that they are for us, right? To show us when we've kind of step to the side on the path, and are we going to choose to step back onto the path? So one emotion that needs to be discussed when it comes to this is disgust, right? D-I-S-G-U-S-T, disgust. And that emotion of disgust is that like repulsion, that avoidance, that resistance, that disapproval that we feel, right? That's an emotion that we feel when we're like, I don't like that. No, ew, stay away from me. That's disgust coming up, right? And so if we honor that and we listen to that, what is disgust showing us? And it's showing us where our thinking is narrow and rigid, where we are resisting growth, right? For example, sushi. For a long time, I was like, ew, raw fish. So, ew, no, I'm not going to eat that. Disgust. But I wasn't open to, exploring that, right? And as a result, I was restricting myself from just enjoying a very delicious meal. Thank you, Japan, for introducing that. And there are whole centuries of people who eat this, and I was disgusted at it. I was rigid at it. I was holding on to these judgments about eating raw food or not that I had grown up with and I had internalized. And when I let that go, when I realized, okay, am I going to grow here? Am I going to have a new experience? Am I going to allow myself to experience something else? Am I going to allow myself to see this differently? Then, I love sushi now. It was the hardest part of my pregnancy, not being able to eat sushi. So this is true for everything that we experience disgust with. If there's a person that disgusts us, if there's a situation that disgusts us, what that's showing us is that we are holding on really tightly to thoughts, opinions, ideas, concepts that are keeping us constricted in our growth. And it's keeping us constricted in our development, in our evolvement, right? So disgust is when you can notice disgust and you can respect it, it is really, really powerful to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm really small-minded right now. I'm being really small-minded. I'm not allowing myself to see a bigger picture in this. And so one question I want you to ask yourself that I use all the time when it comes to noticing my disgust is, if I continue to think this way, if I continue to follow this path, if I continue to limit myself, how am I going to behave? What is the outcome going to be of that? Right now, I'm like, if we go back to the sushi example, if I continue to think this is the most disgusting thing and I keep disapproving of this and pushing it away, I'm never going to eat sushi. Now, maybe that's fine. I don't need to. But do I want to experience a different culture? Do I want to experience a different food? Do I want to expand what I know? Right? And one thing about our subconscious, where we store all of these thoughts and all these things that we collect over time and through our lives, is that it's not a bottomless pit. Contrary to popular belief, we need to pull things out of there. We need to delete things in there because new information is constantly coming in. And we'll talk about this in other episodes and how that impacts us. But just for the purpose of this episode on honoring our emotions, we need to recognize that when we're disgusted and we're restricting ourselves in this way, there are thoughts in our subconscious that need to be discarded so that the new can come in. And when we ask ourselves, if I continue to think this way, how am I going to behave? And we play that tape out. Is that really what we want? Is that really the life that we want? That's what we need to ask ourselves. So as we're on this journey of learning, to become more emotionally resilient, starting with noticing what we're feeling. Notice, are we disgusted with this feeling? Are we honoring it? Are we respecting it? Are we respecting that it's showing up for our good? Or are we disgusted with it and holding on to these ideas and concepts that are keeping us at a distance from it, that are pushing us to just mask what we're feeling and avoid it and ignore it? Right? Are we honoring it and are we letting it in? And I'll tell a quick story because I recently was doing something and I noticed fear come up. And fear is one of those emotions that I've been taught, it's weakness and you need to have courage and you need to, push past it and be fearless. And no. Right? But those thoughts are there. And so I notice myself sometimes when fear comes up, feeling that disgust, like, okay, I need to change how I'm feeling. I need to get away from this fear. And, I didn't have the space in that moment. So I asked myself the questions you ask yourself. How can I take care of myself right now? And what am I responsible for right now? And when I dealt with that and I came back to it later and I said, okay, this fear is showing up for me. Am I going to honor it? Am I going to accept that it's not stupid or silly or any of the thoughts I'm telling myself for why I shouldn't be afraid of what I'm afraid of? It's not about why I should or shouldn't. It's not about judging that fear. It's about honoring it. It's about respecting it. And it's about acceptance, right? Like I said, the reality is that I'm afraid of this thing. It doesn't matter that I have all these judgments about whether I should or shouldn't be afraid of it. The reality that I need to accept if I'm going to move forward and go through that is that I am afraid of this thing, right? So disgust comes up when we're not practicing acceptance, when we're resisting that thing. And so noticing that and honoring that and asking ourselves, do I want to continue behaving this way? Because I can. It is a choice. But I also have the choice to expand and to grow and to open myself up to new possibilities, new opportunities, new ideas. I can take those judgments and those thoughts that are in my subconscious and I can get rid of them. I can throw them out. I don't need to continue living my life with these thoughts, right? We don't need to continue with the things that we have consumed and acquired over the years of our lives. And as we go through life, these emotions will come up to challenge us and to challenge those thoughts that we have and to challenge those beliefs that we're holding on to say, this isn't serving you anymore. You can decide to delete this from the hard drive, right? Which is the subconscious mind analogy. You can decide to get rid of this and to choose a new thing and a new way, right? And we may be afraid of uncertainty. We may be afraid that, I don't know what's on the other side of this. I don't know what's on the other side of this, right? Do we have to know? Do we have to know with certainty what's on the other side of this? Or do we have to be open and willing to the idea that it might be something good, right? If we choose to see something as a positive in our life, it will be positive. If we choose to find meaning in our life, then it will have meaning, right? And there's always meaning. Don't get me wrong. There's always meaning associated with the things that we experience. It's either negative or positive. It's either helping us or hurting us. So when we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else, and vice versa. If I say yes to sticking with my rigid beliefs, I'm saying no to opportunities that I'm not even aware of and unable to fathom and to see, right? So it's about being conscious of this, being aware of this, and asking ourselves, and we don't have to be ready right away, and we don't have to be willing right away. But if you know that the outcome you want is to live a life of inner peace, and you want to live a life where you're in alignment with yourself, you're tired of being anxious all the time, you're tired of being frustrated all the time and angry all the time or sad all the time, you want to change how you're feeling, and none of the things you're doing to temporarily relieve yourself is actually the same as changing it. In order to change the way you feel, you need to notice it and you need to honor it. You need to respect it and you need to walk through it. That's the only way to change how you feel in a way that's sustainable and beneficial to you and to the people around you, right? Everything else is temporarily fixing. It's temporarily putting a band-aid on things, but it is not truly changing it. Right? And so the step to take to truly change how we feel and to truly evolve and grow and to be in alignment with ourselves is to honor our emotions. That means respecting them when we notice them coming up, welcoming them in, noticing if there's disgust that comes up, and knowing that that means that we're really restricting ourselves and we're really in a narrow-minded state of mind, that we're not accepting reality, that we're not stepping into what's actually happening, but we're stuck in our subconscious beliefs, ideas, judgments that are out of alignment with it, right? So it's about knowing this, noticing this, honoring this, and giving yourself the time to do that. You don't need to do it right away. You don't need to, fix it immediately. We're so accustomed to instant gratification. We're so accustomed to finding relief as soon as possible, right? But it ends up accumulating harm over time. And so the way that we change how we feel is to become emotionally resilient, is to become strong. It is to become sovereign. It is to become whole, right? And to remember our power and to remember our strength. I don't mean strong in the sense that we ignore everything that's not it. Strong is just being fully aligned with who you are and remembering that you are powerful, and that when you focus on the things you can control, your life shifts in a positive direction. When you focus on the things you cannot control, like removing your emotions from existence, it's impossible. If you figured out how to do it in a way that actually helps you thrive, let me know, right? Because to me, the only way to really change, and I've seen it in myself and I've seen it with other people who I admire, is that we learn to honor our emotions. We learn to see them as gifts. We learn to see them as important data about where we're at in reality. And we listen to them and allow them to help us choose the right action. If you're afraid, it's okay. Whatever you're feeling is okay. If you feel disgust, it's okay. That's giving you data. That's showing you something that if you didn't see, you wouldn't be able to take the right action, right? The only place that we can take action is from awareness, is from consciousness, is from seeing things. We can't address a problem that we don't see. We can't address a problem that we don't see. We need to become clear. We need to be able to have it in front of us so that we can concretely take steps forward to move through it. None of our emotions are trying to hurt us. None of our emotions are trying to make our life inconvenient. In fact, why we're having these emotions is because our lives are inconvenient and we need to do something to bring ourselves into a space of joy, love, happiness. But we do this by moving through discomfort. And discomfort is always going to exist, right? So we get to choose. If I continue to believe that discomfort needs to be avoided at all costs, how am I going to behave? If I continue to believe that my emotions are negative and my emotions are inconvenient and I shouldn't have them, and I continue to judge these emotions, how am I going to behave? Play that story out. And if you're okay with that outcome, that's your life. Each of us gets to choose. Each of us gets to choose how we want to be and how we want to grow and level up, right? Meaning, do I want to be my full self? Do I want to be all of me? Or do I want to be this fragmented person that is scared and is confused and is running from something that I can never outrun? I tried to outrun my emotions for most of my life, and I could never succeed. And I almost killed myself in the process. So today, I choose to honor them. I choose to respect them. I choose to face them with strength because I know that I have that capability today. And if you're listening to it, you have that capability too. You have the strength to face your emotions, whatever they are. They're not here to hurt you. They're here to help you heal. So, I hope this made sense. It really was a spitball episode, but I just wanted to get it out while it was fresh in my mind and I had the space. I'm so grateful for anyone who listens to this. I'm so excited for a community of people that just wants to become more emotionally resilient and wants to really own their power. And I hope that you gained something from this. And if you did, please let me know. I love you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.